Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, and thank you to the honourable member for his question. In the early part of this year, in the aftermath of tropical cyclone Yasa, there were a lot of issues raised about water in the Rewa Delta by the people that were living there. And as a result of this, the Water Authority of Fiji had to undertake some investigations and some repair works on the water system in the Rewa Delta in response to the complaints of low pressure and also in some cases of not getting water at all. There was intermittent supply to the chiefly village of Lomanikoro. That means that sometimes they were getting water being supplied late in the evenings or the early morning hours, so not water all around. And in this particular zone, where there was intermittent water, WEF had to mobilize its teams to walk the lines, to follow the pipelines, where the distribution lines, where the water was being supplied, and look at the areas that needed to be repaired and attend to them. And as we speak now, water supply has been restored at Lomanikoro village. The WEF teams also had to go and identify there were areas in which the mains had burst. Mains in Lokia village. Now the water that comes to the Rewa Delta, it comes across from Narere and it follows down that from Narere to Ndimbulu, goes through the swamp areas down to Lokia, then it goes underground from Lokia, what's that landing called? Naililili. Naililili, it goes underwater and it goes to Lomanikoro, then it's distributed further down the delta. So they had to identify the burst mains at Lokia village, also at Ndimbulu, just at Narere, at the bottom of Narere, and also at Vuluku. Even though after they had repaired all these mains, they found that there were still some areas in the delta area that continued to receive low pressure and also intermittent supply, meaning they got water at some times, but at other times they did not have water. This included villages of Nasingatoka, Nandoi village, Nasilai, Vutia, Tabuia, Nakaulau, Nambua, Drakena, Vunuku, Nardivo, Nukui village, and also some settlements, Nariri and Naroro, informal settlements. So what WEF had to do at that time is to get a barge, and in areas that could not be reachable by roads, to make sure that they could cart water to some of these areas. And I'm aware that there was also water tanks placed at the, what's that landing? Nasale landing, for villagers to also come up and take water from that landing to take it down to the areas that they have. While at the same time, we had to come in and see it was suspected that the fault was in the submarine lines. There's lines that come across from the Lokia landing across to Lomanikoro. So in order to do this, in order to carry this out, WEF had to walk the line from Ndimbulu all the way down to Lokia. This means walking through swamps. I actually tried to walk along with them, and it's not easy walking along those swamps because it's very hard to identify where the leaks are when you're taking the pipes through the swamps because it's full of water. And then they also had to follow it all the way down to Nukui village, which is right down at the mouth of the river where it meets the sea, to identify and rectify the significant leaks that were contributing to the water loss. So by method of elimination, WEF team also carried out flushing works on the submarine pipes. That's on both ends of the river. On the Lokia side, they had to identify the pumps and flush it out. Make sure you get all the silt out, all the air out of the system, and then go across to the other side of the river, on the Lomanikoro. They initially had to thought to get a digger to dig it out because it was a big excavation that they had to do. But because of the difficulties in getting their digger, they had to get actual workers to actually do the job. It was a big job. And I went there and saw what they did. I tip my hat off to the workers of Water Authority. It is hard work, it's dirty work, but they still managed to do it. I carried out the flushing works to get rid of the silt and the air to make sure that these are not the cause of intermittent water supply. And flushing means that you remove the air pockets, that if they are in existence, they will significantly affect the water pressure to the customers. And in parallel with the flushing works, WEF also installed a number of new isolation valves along the way that will allow for the removal of silt built up in the future, because the silt also will affect the quality of the water, the dirtiness, the cleanliness of the water, and also the pressure of the water that is received by the customers. In addition to these measures, WEF has completed the reactivating of the Lominikoro header tank. This is a big tank that sits in Lominikoro village. And they had to, this tank will allow them to provide additional storage for areas within the delta. The pressure is, and the flow is now being monitored through the WEF National Control Center. So they have to look at the amount of water that goes into, when you have pipes that are connecting, how much is open to go to one distribution line and another one that goes to another distribution line, and at the same time make sure that there's some water going into this tank that sits in Lominikoro village. There's another similar tank, I think, in another village down in Novo, further down. So these are tanks of water that you build up, and then when there's lack of supply, they can feed off into those particular tanks. So now, Mr. Speaker, sir, water supply has been restored to the Lominikoro, the Singatoka, the Votia area, the Kenda village, Nambua, Nandoi village, and Naslai. As a way forward, WEF will also continue to work on identifying leaks in the Lominikoro village reticulation system. There will be ongoing verification of the distribution network. It's also reconfiguration of the system to get the best out of the Lominikoro head tank. Reconfiguring how much more water goes into the different pipes and lines that are in that area. And they will also continue to walk the line, walk the lines within the delta to identify and address any additional leaks within the delta area. And this is something that WEF hopes to work closely with the Turanikoros and the water committees in each of the villages. So if they do find leaks, WEF can be informed quickly so that they can try to address that. And also the cleaning of domestic customer meters. So there's been a lot of work, Mr. Speaker, sir. A friend of mine, a schoolmate of mine at USP sent a message thanking me, but I think I'm not actually to be thanked. The people to thank are the people at Water Authority of Fiji, the Board of Water Authority of Fiji, the new CEO, and the management team, and also the officers that I actually visited the Rewa Delta 3 times during this operation. And I'd just like to mention the members of the team that work hard on this. Lee Chen, the Manager for Infrastructure and Service Delivery for the Central and Eastern, Mr. Patrick Pangale, the Assistant Manager, Semisi Nakaulevu, Project Manager, Chimilai Tumbua, the Team Leader for Water Operations, and the number of 3 supervisors, Rotafili Monis and Loli, Moses Maivunindawa, Netani Kumbunabanua, and Chokuni Siwa, the Technical Officer, and also the workers that will work very hard on this particular operation. Seeing the amount of work that they had to do in difficult conditions, I appreciate the work that is done by the Water Authority. There have been a lot of disparaging comments about Water Authority of Fiji, but seeing how they've worked, I think I'm very thankful that they've been able to restore water to the Rewa Delta. There are still other challenges that are before us, Mr. Speaker, sir, but I'm grateful that the water can be extended down to the Rewa Delta. Mr. Speaker, sir.